Last week, I gave you the best of 2023. This week, we're throwing some dreams away. Today, we're talking worst of 2023. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Neverland Book Club. Now, while the best of the year videos are my favorite to make each year, the worst of are my least favorite. I'd rather just not talk about the books I don't like, but I do enjoy a good rant every now and then, so strap in, grab a snack, and put your negativity helmet on because it's about to get cynical. I actually didn't read that many terrible books this year. The majority of the titles on this list reflect my level of disappointment, if anything else, so take that with a grain of Himalayan salt. I don't necessarily think all of these books are bad, they just didn't do it for me. They didn't meet my expectations, didn't check all my boxes. You get the idea. All right, let's start off strong with my biggest disappointment of the year. Holly by Stephen King. Anyone who knows me, in person or online, knows that I am the biggest King diehard, which is why when I purchased Holly on its release day and started eagerly reading the first book dedicated to one of my favorite characters in Stephen's horror multiverse, I was hoping for, I don't know, a story about that one character, Holly Gibney. But no. What did I get? What did we get, audience? Huh? Say it with me. Elderly cannibals. I should say spoilers before that. It's like the first chapter. You kind of, are these elderly cannibals? And then that's it. There's no surprise. They're elderly cannibals. Yep, just no backstory, no big epic rise to the occasion plot for our heroine. Now, I will say, in the beginning, I was drawn in. I was intrigued. The writing is quintessential King, but then he gets political, using characters as mouthpieces for his own political opinions and preferences, and don't get me started on that. Referencing elections and politicians and policies every other paragraph, and since he wrote this during the pandemic, oh my god, with the COVID references, every single character introduction is, oh, did you get vaxxed? I got vaxxed, triple vaxxed, in fact. You got an extra mask? I got 3 N95s in my bag. Every character was categorized good and evil by their stances on masks, and listen, I get it. I worked through the pandemic. I wasn't a frontline nurse or anything, but I did work at a surgery center in the thick of it. But now, no one wants to read about that. I certainly don't, and especially not like this. It's one thing if it was actually relevant to the story, but it wasn't at all. I mean, I'll never stop reading King, so he didn't lose a reader over it. It's just I was disappointed. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, so I'll just stop now before I burst a blood vessel. Too late, because next we have Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. Ironic, since last year her YA novel Check and Mate was on my best of the year list. Now, I do believe my last video of 2023, back a few months, I spoke in depth about my dislikes for this book. This was, in my opinion, Hazelwood's worst written novel. From the romance, the plot, the characters, their motivations, the spice, it was all so bad. I'm not even fully convinced Ali Hazelwood wrote this novel because it sounds so different to that of her previous 2 novels. And especially now, after reading Check and Mate, I almost gave up. Truly, I almost threw in the towel with Hazelwood after this book, but I'm glad I didn't. But man, was I angry. The first thing that comes to mind when I think of the disappointment this book raised is the spice. The spice was so bland it felt like chewing on unseasoned chicken. Twilight is on the entire time, being referenced multiple times throughout the novel, starting on page 4. And at one point he asks, "Is it all in?" Not only that, the male character has no game. Can't keep up, leaves our female MC high and dry, and I'm sure with a UTI. I don't know if I meant to have that rhyme. The writing was trying way too hard to be funny, using cheap punchlines and basic references, and the characters were all annoying and I didn't care about any of them. I don't remember one name from this entire book. Her name? What's her name? Couldn't tell you. I'm surprised his name wasn't Edward. It might be. I don't remember. If you've been thinking of reading Miss Hazelwood's books, skip this one. Her others are okay. They're okay. They're fine. This one, no. I won't even fake it to save the book's feelings. You were bad. Bad in bed. Bad in book. Bad. Okay. Continuing with Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I'm not sure what I expected from this book, but it didn't hit the spot you know? I'd heard so much about it for years and finally decided to read it while in a sci-fi adventure mood. It was exciting, it was fun, but it read like an action movie where the characters don't have much dimension or depth. The main character seemed to not have much emotion when his world was literally exploding all around him. And not even, like, it was literal. Like, in the real world, things were falling apart. He was like, what? It also seemed to feed on the nostalgia appeal, sacrificing substance for pop culture references. The relentless stream of 80s references feels more like pandering than a thoughtful homage, overshadowing any potential for originality. For a story based on being fully immersed in a virtual world, I didn't feel myself lost in the story. Also, I cannot stand the narrator of the audiobook. While listening, I thought, this guy sounds so familiar, and I just hate his approach. Then it came to me. This is the same guy who did The Martian, which brings us to our next 2023 disappointment. The Martian by Andy Weir. Now, I spoke briefly in a wrap-up video last year about not liking the performance of this narrator. I thought it was just for the one book, but no. The over-the-top, can't read the room, overacting approach is just this guy's style. And I find it aggravating. It's just not for me. That's not to say me. I don't like over-exaggerating. Ironic. That's not to say he wouldn't be a good fit for other books. I'm sure he would, but for the two that I've read that he narrated, nope, it's a miss. As for my reasons for disliking the book itself, I didn't. I actually really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Why is it on this list then? The narrator. That's it. It just ruined it. All right, next we have a title I did not expect to dislike, hence disappointment. Yellowface by the great R.F. Kuang. After reading the Popular trilogy and Babel, which was on my best of 2023 list, I did not expect this title to fall so flat for me. I adore R.F. Kuang, her storytelling, her world building, her ability to create complex characters with inner and outer conflicts with the highest of stakes while maintaining the presence of side characters and plot. She is genius, but it seemed like a study or perhaps an attempt at a social experiment to see how the public would react to such a specific story. Even the title almost feels like a slur. First off, it's a book about writing, something I'm not too fond of. However, despite the protagonist being an author, it's not necessarily about the writing. The MC is unlikable, exploiting the death of a fellow author and stealing her manuscript, plagiarizing her final work and turning it into something all her own. Now, I see what Kuang was trying to do here. Literary powerhouse that she is, I think she succeeded. However, with that said, I think there are better ways to address the issues of diversity and representation among other topics. I will say I did appreciate the insight into the publishing world. That was actually very helpful in my publishing endeavors last year. It's eye-opening how volatile traditional publishing can be. It's anecdotal, of course, but that's a topic of discussion for another video. Next, The American Roommate Experience by Elena Armas. Experiment. See, I can't even... What was it called? Despite having some issues with the Spanish love deception, I listed it as one of the comparable titles to my book for very specific reasons. However, I stand by my initial complaint in saying the book was way longer than it needed to be for this genre. I have the same complaint about The American Roommate Experiment. Also, the insta-love is strong with this one. How can the two characters be so into each other right away, yet the book goes on for as long as it did? Don't look at me like that.
I'm just hearing things that seem...
Don't look at me like that.
that seem very loosely applicable.
Don't look at me like that.
Which book are you talking about?
Oh, that's mean! It's different, okay? It's different. It seems like some chapters were like filler episodes full of montages with trendy pop music in the background, you know? I did read The Long Game after that and liked it so much more. So it's not necessarily Armas's writing style I disliked. Her books just seem to wander, losing focus at times and going off on unnecessary tangents. Now, that's fine when it comes to fantasy. A side quest is a side quest, but when it comes to this genre, I personally prefer if we stick to the task at hand. And for that, I was a bit disappointed. I think in the world of contemporary romance, since almost all of the stories are predictable and filled with cliches and tropes, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, you need something eye-catching, something new and exciting to add to the genre. That's all I have to say about that. Okay, next, Another title I had every intention of enjoying. A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This was a big disappointment since I'd had this title on my TBR for a long time. And when I finally got to it, it was over 300 pages of world building, exposition, and passive narration. The only thing I liked about the protagonist was her first name, Galadriel, which is from The Lord of the Rings, and explicitly referenced throughout the book. Her character's cynicism is overwhelming and annoying, making the character one you perhaps can't slip yourself into and enjoy. That sounded dirty. This read was part of my dark academia venture, and although the setting delivered in vibes, the frequency was rather low in its delivery. The magical school setting, rife with lethal dangers, fails to evolve beyond a one-dimensional backdrop, despite the entire novel reading like a textbook explanation of layout and protocols. I felt as though the narrative struggled to find its footing, told by a character you have a hard time rooting for. The tension that built in the beginning wanes, as the threats Galadriel faces becomes repetitive, leaving the ending a bit disengaging. I really wanted to enjoy this novel, and I did in the beginning, but the more I read, the less I found myself caring for the characters. I'm sorry to say, I don't see myself continuing this series this year, so sorry. A lot of titles from today are from authors I typically love, but were just disappointed in specific titles. This next one is another such instance. In the Life of Puppets by T.J. Klune. T.J. Klune. Love him. I was so excited to read this book. It was 15% off. I absolutely adore Klune's characters. Each character is unique and memorable in their own right, capturing the hearts of readers with their charm, wit, and sense of humor and humanity. And though this title did not lack in that aspect of quality characters, the story itself lacked substance for me. Though the characters went through an adventure, they didn't really change. There was no true development by the end of the story. They ended up in the same exact spot they started out, both literally and figuratively. And much of the reasoning behind their actions didn't really make sense for me personally. The stakes were superficially high, if that makes sense. I will say though, Klune's writing style is unique and enjoyable, weaving great representation into his stories that feel wholesome and just cozy, you know? All right, the final bad book of 2023 goes to a little piece of smut I ran into that was so unexpected, I just couldn't stop laughing by the end of it because of its sheer absurdity. The filthy imagination one must have to come up with this is unmatched. The amount of smut I read last year was pretty solid. Not too much, not too little, a healthy amount, I'd say. But this title was by far the most absurd I've come across in all forms of smut. That's including all the monsters and all the aliens and all of the rituals that I've learned about. All the different forms of dirty, dirty content I've come across in my perusal of filth. I had never even fathomed the possibility of a young woman f***ing her front door. Never occurred to me. Never in my life have I looked at any of the front doors of the homes I've lived and thought, you know what? That's a sexy front door. I'd like to fuck it. That's the type of door I can rely on, depend on, mount, mate, manipulate. I will say, the lore behind this, the reasoning, is sound, strong as oak. A Greek god mates with a mighty oak tree. They make baby acorns, which grow into sentient trees, one of which is cut down to make a front door of one lucky woman's apartment. Why are all the other doors in this apartment not from the same batch? Who knows? It's just that one. This sentient oak door wakes up and watches the woman he's bound to protect. In order to become human, the door must mate with the woman, the way his father mated with his tree mother. He comes to the woman in a dream and explains this to her, and by all means, she buys it. She acquiesces his dream request, and bada bing, bada ding dong. I wrote that! I forgot that I wrote that. He Beauty and the Beast himself into a human man. A lot of other things happen, but that's the kooky gist of it all. Honestly, this book should have probably been on my best of the year list because I liked it a lot. But the absurdity of it was just too much, and the title is perhaps the very best part of the whole thing. This was Unhinged by Vera Valentine, an erotic door romance. And nothing like I ever expected. At only 71 pages, I read this in one sitting. But honestly, I would have read this even if it were 700 pages. It was surprisingly fun and definitely memorable. Just the fact that the unit on the cover is also 69, like, it's genius. I have to believe this is satire. It has to be. The author must be making fun of smut with this title because how else is it both ridiculous and fun? Now, this is a safe space. I won't judge you based on what you read, and I expect the same courtesy. With that said, this title makes the worst of the list because it sent me over to the inanimate object side of smut, which I didn't know existed. These are just a few titles I have not read, and I don't think I need to, just based on the title. Stuffed, double stuffed. Seduced by the pumpkin spice latte. Stuffed by the were-turkey. There's smut, like the brilliance of Sarah Kate and Sierra Simone. And then there's whatever the fuck this is. Okay, that took up way more time than I thought it would. That's all I have for you today. Dear viewers, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you're not. We have so much planned for this year. Reading, writing, publishing, the works. It's all on the agenda. We've also joined Threads, so be sure to follow us over there for more social media scrolling. You know, just endless scrolling. We're all addicted. Might as well be addicted together. Today's shout out goes to Books on Wheels. What a simple and to the point compliment. I love it. Thank you. I don't remember what it is. All right, I'm off to go see what Kindle Unlimited has to offer. There are some gems and there are some shiny stones of feces. You just have to sift through a lot to find the flash in the pan. Stay lost, keep reading. See you next time. Bada bing, bada ding dong. Goodbye.